I doubt you can see this, but there's a pretty big trout in there. He was kind of hanging out in this little stream here, and then we heard my footsteps. He swam out and hid in the shade over there. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Let's Hike. This is Let's Hike Maltby Lakes again, and my name is Dan Brown. And today I'm not going to really be doing any trails. Normally I'll talk about a trail, but part of what I like this series to be about is kind of reminiscing about what it was like growing up with certain trails and certain parks, and remembering what it was like, and telling stories from when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, there weren't any trails in Maltby Lakes. There were just kind of like access roads that the maintenance crew would drive on, and sometimes we walk on those, but most of the time we just wander aimlessly in the woods. And so this episode is going to be kind of about that. I'm just going to talk about some of the places of interest that we would walk to or discover when we were kids. We being my friend Brian and my brother Jeff. And so yeah, basically I'm just gonna find some of the interesting things that we used to, some of the hangouts that we used to go to when we were kids, and stuff like that. So all right, let's begin. This rock, this is where my brother and I used to play paintball, and we weren't allowed to have, like, my father was very anti-violence, and when we were kids, we weren't even allowed to play with water guns. So anytime we wanted to do something gun related, we kind of had to hide it from him. And one day we got paintball guns, and we had to hide. We opened up the eaves of our room, and we pulled up the insulation, and we used to hide our paintball guns under the insulation in the eaves. And that's how we kept it from my father. And then when my father wasn't home, we'd sometimes come out here and play paintball. And we didn't really research paintball as well as we should have the first couple of times. And normally when you play paintball, you wear a mask that covers your face and your ears, and you also need some protection for your genitals. But the first time we came out here, we figured all you really need is, like, how hard could it be? How hard could it hurt? All we got were like laboratory safety goggles. Like, they would be one single strap around the back of your head, and there were goggles in front. And we came out here with the paintball guns, and we used that was all we had the first couple of times. And I remember my brother had like this more of a submachine gun style paintball gun, where he had this large canister on the top, and the paintballs would fall into the chamber through gravity, and he could fire, I think, about 30 rounds non-stop. And my paintball gun, I don't know what I was thinking, but I got a paintball gun that was just a pistol. And my paintball gun, it only could hold 10 shots, and every time you fired a shot, you had to cock it. And sometimes, when I'd fire, like, I guess there was something wrong with the compressor, so sometimes the paintball would fire normally, and sometimes it would go and fall 2 feet out of the barrel of the gun and not get any results. So here was me, bloop, bloop, and my brother. And so we'd come out here and have these pretty exciting gunfights. Now, the way that our rounds would work when we were paintball fighting, basically there would be a person who would be the hider, and there was a person who would try to find that person. And the person who was hiding would go down in that area where I just was, lean up against the tree and count, hide and seek style. And I forget what number we counted to, but we gave the person a lot of time to hide. And I'm up on top of a hill, and it's a very rocky hill. There are lots of rocks that jut out. There are lots of logs and twisty trees, as you can see. It's kind of difficult to. It's kind of easy to hide sometimes. And the borders, so you didn't wander miles off into the woods, were kind of down to the lowest point around the edge of this hill. And a lot of the times, like I would patrol the border, and because I knew that he couldn't be behind me, so I would patrol the limits of the boundary and look inward and look for my brother. And I'm not sure what he did. Sometimes he was very clumsy and you could hear him stomping through the woods, and sometimes he would just be silent as a ghost. And but a lot of the final fights when we found each other ended up at the top of this hill, like right around this area, and this is where it would get kind of crazy sometimes. One of the first gunfights we had, I was creeping along this, I don't know if this is the rock, but it was a rock similar to this. And I was like pinned down in here, and my brother had his like semi-automatic machine gun, paintball gun, and bullets were just flying over my head, like this, and I was just pinned down with my little pea shooter. And I remember I just popped up and fired, and I got a lucky shot, and I hit my brother right in the forehead. And I remember he was kind of like taken aback because he was saying that because of the force with which it hit his forehead, we were starting to have our doubts about whether we had the proper safety equipment, because we only had those laboratory safety goggles, and like that was the first inkling that we had that we didn't have the appropriate protection. Another time when we had a fight up here was I was kind of walking across the top of the hill, and I noticed my brother coming up somewhere on this part of the hill, and we started shooting at each other, and my brother started like falling back, like walking backward, trying to take cover down toward the bottom of the hill. And I don't remember exactly how many shots were fired or whatever, but I remember I was shooting down at him and he was shooting up at me, and I didn't mean to do this, but I shot him right in the crotch. And this was before this was when we just had safety goggles. We didn't have the proper headgear. We didn't have any protection down there, and he fell on the ground, and he was making noises of pain that I didn't think a human being could make. And after that, we went back to the store and we got the full headgear One time my brother, one time my brother got the drop on me was when I was at the top of the hill, and I was walking around up there, and I didn't see my brother at all. And I decided I was going to come more toward this way and explore. And so I was up at the top of there, and I climbed down that rock wall, and I made it down to the bottom of the rock wall, and I was kind of creeping along the edge there. And at some point, all of a sudden, I heard pop, 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 like the firing of his gun, and paintballs just spattering around me, and I just ran over this way toward the rocks, and I was just sprinting as fast as I could, and all of a sudden, a paintball hit me in the like right beneath my right butt cheek, and my whole leg just kind of went numb, and I fell down on the ground and like landed on rocks, and I was like just smashed up against the rocks, and I kind of rolled a couple of feet, and I was kind of amazed that like getting shot in certain areas can just make your limbs go numb for a moment and just drop you. But I was shot like right beneath my butt cheek, and like that was enough to just bring me to the ground. Sometimes when we come out here and have shootouts, like because we are both trying to sneak as quietly as possible, sometimes you'd see animals. Like I remember one time I was just kind of hunkered down behind some rocks like this, probably down further down into the I don't know if you'd call that a ravine, but there's a hill over there, there's a hill over here, and there's like a in-between area, it's like a tiny little valley. And I remember one time a little mouse came by and just scurried right by me. And I remember one time I was in that same area, and I looked up, and there was an owl just sitting there, and he was looking down at me, and I was like, "How's it going, owl?" And then he just kind of hung out there for a little while and then flew away. And I remember one time I think this was before we really established the boundaries of the paintball arena, and I went up on that hill over there, and this turtle was just kind of plugging along. And I was like, "Hey, turtle, how's it going?" and yeah, it's kind of peaceful in between, the part where we're shooting at each other. One time, I was actually on this ridge, and there's something about playing paintball that, like, you're so pumped up on adrenaline, or at least I was, that sometimes I would do stupid things that I probably wouldn't do in any other case. Like I remember I was on this hilltop, and my brother just appeared behind me and started firing, and I just ran, and I dove on there was this big old log that branched out into 3 pieces in my direction, and it was on top of a rock, and I just jumped and dove on it like I was sliding into home plate or something. And I remember just like you dive out of the way and take cover, and little bits and pieces of your skin would be nicked off and scraped away, and you wouldn't even care. Like it was just like bits of your knuckle would just get chipped off, and it was like so exciting that you didn't even care. Like, but yeah, it could get pretty reckless. The last shootout that I want to talk about is like I said before, a lot of the time my brother would often seem very noisy and just clomp through the woods. But but sometimes like he was like a ghost, and he'd just appear out of nowhere and be shooting at you. And one of those times I remember I was creeping up from this direction somewhere, and I think I was making my way over here, and my brother appeared on the hill behind the camera there, and he had the advantage of higher ground, and he just fired a storm down on top of me, and I didn't get hit, luckily, and I got behind this rock, and my brother was just like, I think he was getting a little anxious, like he was like, I have the advantage, and he was like getting too excited, so he was like shooting, but he wasn't like he was being impatient and not taking careful aim, like he was just too enthusiastic, and I looked up and I could see this in his eyes, like he was already certain that he won the round. And so I was like, all right, Dan, all you have to do is stay nice and cool, and just pop up and aim very carefully and just shoot him. And so I did that, and I popped up and I was very careful, but the bullets were just like spattering all over the rocks, and I had to keep ducking down, and I kept trying to get up really carefully, and I fired a couple times, but I missed. And then I remember ducking down, and he shot me like right in the center of the top of the head, and it was like this time we had the mask that covered my whole face, but he just got me like right on the top where it opened up. And I remember that was probably the most painful time that I was shot. Like a lot of the time the paintballs would explode on my shoulder. Like when you get shot in the shoulder, or a place where you have good solid bone structure, it doesn't always hurt that much, but like the top of the head hurts a lot based on personal experience. Back in the getting shot in the butt, I don't remember that hurting too much. I just remember it was like numbing. And of course you have the obvious places that you don't want to get shot. One last paintball story. I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly because I drank all my water and it's really hot and I'm sweating bullets. My mouth is starting to get dry, but hopefully I'll be able to show you the centerpiece of this episode before I go home. But one day when we were coming back from a paintball shootout, it was getting dark, and we were walking back to the parking lot, and there was this Ranger truck in the parking lot, and I was thinking we should just I should probably take the bags of paintball guns and walk out and just walk home instead of taking the car, because that way I wouldn't have to walk by the Rangers. And Jeff was like, no, it's okay, we'll just walk to our car and leave. And so I didn't feel like it was a good idea, but I just went along with it. And so the Ranger drove over to us, and she was like, hey, what do you guys got in the bag? And my brother was like, our equipment. And I was thinking, there's no way that answer is going to be good enough for this Ranger. So I was like, it's our paintball guns. And the Ranger was like, no way, there's no way that's allowed in there. And she kind of lectured us for a while. And but luckily we got to take our paintball guns and go home without like getting a ticket or anything. But that was the last time we played paintball at Maltby Lakes. One day I was walking along this path, and I saw this big black snake just kind of laying on the trail. And he was probably about 6 feet long, not especially thick, but maybe his head would have been about that long and maybe about that thin, and probably about 6 feet, maybe 5 feet long. And I'm kind of I like snakes, and I've always thought about catching them and and whether or not it would be a good idea to catch them. And I remember I think this was probably before I'd caught a lot of snakes. And I don't know why, but I guess I just felt like I was going to see how aggressive this snake was. And so I took a stick, and like a long stick maybe about as long as the snake was. And I sat down in front of him, probably about 3 feet away. And I stuck the stick out toward the snake, and he was just sitting perfectly still. And didn't really move. And then I got the stick, and I got it right underneath his chin, and I went like this with the stick, and the snake just sped off into the woods. And I was like, it was kind of remarkable to me at the time how much more afraid the snake was of me than I was of it. I mean, that's what everybody always says. Like, they always say, oh, the snake's more afraid of you than you are of it. And like, that was probably the first time that really was demonstrated to me. Like, it was a really long, big snake. It was probably one of the biggest that I'd seen at that time, and it just shot off like as fast as it could go, faster than I would think a snake could move. And I've had similar stories with snakes and try and catch them, but I'm going to save one of them for when I go around the third lake, and then I'll have more snake stories when I do the third lake. But alright, hopefully I'll make it to the final place I want to show you before the bugs swarm me and drink all my blood and I sweat to death. Little tree frog. See you later, buddy. So one day, my brother, after he was wandering in the woods all alone, he came up to me and said, I found an alien spaceship in the woods. And I was like, no way, you did not. And then he said, yes, I did. It's this huge thing, it's huge. And I was like, no way. And so he says, all right, I'll show you. And so we came out into the woods, and we saw that. And it's made out of like really lightweight materials. There's like some kind of porthole there. And it looks like it's been here a long time. But I don't know what it is. But when we first found it, it was kind of creepy. And we kind of referred to it as the alien ship or the Yoda house, because it looks kind of like that house that Yoda from Star Wars lived on in Dagobah. And you can go inside it. See if I can find the best camera angle. Yeah, and the sound is kind of muffled once you come in here. The roof is all caved in. I feel like the roof used to be a little bit more covered. We found this thing like, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe? But there were rooms, there was a room over there that was all covered up. And when we first came here, we were like, kind of, we found the fact that the walls were so flimsy to be interesting, and we were stupid teenagers, so we punched a couple of holes in. There's some graffiti there. When we first found this place, the walls were all decorated with like frat symbols and vandalism. But I'm thinking this is like some people built this as a place to go and drink in the woods and get drunk. Sometimes when we came in here, there were fire. You know, there was a fire pit that had burned out. Sometimes there were like decorations, like there's a string there that's hanging from the ceiling. Ryan has obviously been here. But it's kind of a cool place. And it kind of was built out of the edge of like a, kind of like a cliff. The Yale golf course is right over there through those woods. So maybe it was like a place where people from Yale came to get drunk after they played golf or something. But it looks like a really cool place. There's like a tube entrance, all these weird windows. I'll go in it and stand by it just so you can see an example of how big it is. Alright, so this has been Let's Hike Maltby Lakes Random Wandering, or Aimless Wandering. Thanks for coming along with me, and if you like the stuff that's happening on this channel, please don't forget to subscribe. And here's a little note. But I have a million mosquitoes buzzing around me at the moment, so I'm gonna get the hell out of this swamp.